Welcome back to Colbert Mini Projects. This morning I'm at my cousin's house and we are going to put a wheelchair ramp in here for her husband. And so I've got the tools. I want to get all this stuff inside. It's supposed to rain this morning. Then I've already got a material list. We're going to go together. We're going to go to Menards. We're going to pick up some lumber. We're going to come back and then we'll get this thing assembled. Okay, she had the foresight to kind of clear all these cabinets out. She did clear half the garage out, which is awesome. Appreciate that help. So we're going to take Christy's cabinets. We're going to set them outside. They're a little worse for wear, and she says she's not even planning on keeping them. So we're going to take these out. She may do her own shelving in the future. I just want to make sure when I pull this out, I don't do any damage to any wiring or anything like that. I don't want to hit their sensor on their garage door. But yeah, you can see how it doesn't have a lot of diaphragm. So I don't know. I'm going to make an effort to pull this to myself. I'll let that swing down. Oh, yeah. Let's stay off of the vehicles. I'll set that right here for now. Sneak through here. Now this, I just noticed, has some stuff inside of it. It almost looks like glass, so I'm going to hold the door. I took some time prior to this project to just do a little bit of math and figure out how this would work. A few things we had to consider was when you do bring a wheelchair in here, we don't want to have to open the garage door each and every time. What that does is it limits the, well, number one, it's going to limit the run we can have here. So this won't be like ADA compliant. You're going to have to push a little bit harder, but we still are going to break this out into about 15-foot run, which leaves them something like 40 inches to be able to spin a wheelchair without having to open the garage door just to get up and get on here. So I'm going to pull a few measurements. I know that the top of my plywood needs to be basically the top of this. So I would say that if I'm marking the edges, I could put my speed square right on top of this threshold. I can make a mark, and then I'll just square this mark around right there. Okay, that'll be top of floor. Now I want top of floor to be 2 inches below our bumpers. That way we'll have like basically a bumper to where if you're driving up this thing and you go off crooked or something, you don't fall off the ramp. So this will be top of 2 by 12 right here, and then we're going to slope down. Now most of these need to be a minimum of 36 inches wide. I'm going to check here. I know that I'm going to put the inside of the board here. I could make this pretty easily 4 foot wide, which gives them just a little bit of room where a person up here can like walk around the wheelchair, lock wheels, step around, open the door, whatever you got to do. So I think we'll go ahead and just make this thing 4 foot wide. That'll get you even closer to the wall too if you want to do any bracing. So first things first, I know that the pitch on this is going to be 1 3/4 inch 12. So I'll cut that 1 3/4 inch 12. We'll have to notch it for this step that we're going to go around on, not on this side, but actually on this side. This side will be out here somewhere. And then we'll bring those in. So we lost a half hour of efficiency because I left my phone at Menards. What a knucklehead. So, all right, come on in here. I'll show you what I've got, everyone. So I'm going to show you how to use this Construction Pro calculator. And there's actually an app on your phone right there that you can click. Okay. And this will give you the Construction Master Pro. Every once in a while, an ad will pop up, but it's not that bad. Okay. Now, I know that my rise, our stairs go up 2 inches, or excuse me, 2 feet, but I've also got 2 inches of a bumper I want to add. So it'd be a 26-inch rise. So if you come over to your phone and you type in 26 and type the inch button and then hit rise, that's all you need for now. Okay, now it's waiting for another command. Now we want to know what our run is going to be. It's 14 foot 7 3/8. So I'll come over here and I'll type 14 foot 7 inch 3/8. Okay, now it's asking me what is that measurement. That's going to be the run. Okay, so that's basically my rise is here. My run is from this point to this point flat. Okay, that tells me that I'm going to be 14 7 3/8 what I enter. Now I can hit my diagonal and it's going to tell me 177 inches. Okay, I can hit the diagonal again. Let's see if it'll tell me here. Let's see if I can convert to feet real fast. There you go, 14.9 and 5/16. Okay, so that tells me that right here, this will be 14 foot 9 and 5/16. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that my long point, so I'm going to have to cut this angle down right here. Okay, so I don't know what this angle is, but I'm going to have to cut this corner off this board. So now that I know my diagonal and I know that what my run was and I know my rise, now I can hit my pitch button here and it'll tell me that's 1 3/4 pitch. So that's 1 3/4 over 12. Okay. All right. So when I actually draw an angle on this, what that will look like is I will set this on my pivot point. Let's just take the end of the board. That's your pivot. Okay. And I am going to be looking at the commons. Okay. Don't get into your hip and valley stuff, but just your commons. I want to go 1 3/4, which is right about there. And that will be the pitch on the end of this board. Okay. The only other thing I would tell you is if you stand directly behind me, we want to make sure this board probably has a crown this way or this way. Okay. And that's going to define our pivot point. So I'm going to take a look at it. And I would say that we've already crowned this board. So that would tell me this is the upside. Okay. You square this across, that's going to be your cut. Now we're going to pull from our long point. And if you're looking at this piece of paper, this is your purple square. Okay. We're going to pull from our long point to our long point. When we get to here, we're actually going to cut a long angle along the concrete floor to here, which is going to be something like 6.5 feet. So it's going to be a really, really, really long angle. You're going to think, man, I just threw away half my board. But that's the arithmetic behind what I'm doing here. So let's get this cut, and then I'll walk you through a couple of the other things. I always say, hey, cut one, dry fit it, see if it works. If you mess something up terribly, you may have to shorten the ramp slightly, and you can adjust your angles. This is another angle with just a larger speed square. I like this one because you can see the distance between the 1 and 2 on that versus the distance between the 1 and 2 on this. You have a better chance of being a little bit more accurate. Okay, so I'll take this, and I know that this is a half, right? So then my brain is telling me I got to go to halfway between half. So that's what I'm eyeballing. And what's fascinating there is you can see my line was just slightly off. So that would have put us about an 1/8 inch difference. Sweet. So what I just did was I pulled my long to my long. So if you can imagine this board on the piece of paper, now what we've got to do, this is going to be sitting on the concrete floor right here. So now we've got to cut this long angle that goes all the way back. Now that we've got the long point marked and we know that we're going to be running a strong angle this direction, we can set our speed square on this mark, this pivot, okay, and we know we're cutting this direction. Now, what you do here, and this is going to blow your mind, it would be actually a mark right here, 1 3/4, okay, on the inside. That's why this hole's cut out. Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to, see if I want to get a good trace on this. It's going to run this direction. So now I'll connect these 2 points right here. All right. And you could probably use a 4-foot level on this, which I tend to use, so I may go get one, but depending on how long of a cut you need, I'm gonna trace this all the way out, and we'll measure, and we'll say, okay, is that about 6.5 feet? That'll tell me that even though this angle looks drastic, it's accurate. Okay, we're getting our points lined up. And the more gradual a slope you have, the steeper this angle is going to be. So I am going to take my tape measure now. And I just want to eyeball this and tell myself, yeah, you're about, you're close to 7 feet on that angle. So, and I think the math I did, it was going to be like 6'9". So yeah, we're pretty close. We're pretty close on that. So I think I'm comfortable to cut that angle. And we'll go dry fit it. And then again, if we need to adjust it or tweak it, we can. We've also got this board right here that we could always sister onto it to add a little strength if needed. I'm going to spin this. All right, we'll go dry fit this. Yeah, pretty good. I like it. All right, I've got this dry fit. I mean, when I hold it up, It fits really well. It's just what we want. I'm going to take this cut and I'll just go ahead and trace it on the other one so they're identical. And then we'll start working back through this and we'll say, okay, we're going to measure down for our bumper, then our floor thickness, chalk some lines on these, have them all kind of ready and almost pre-built before we put them in place here. All right, we've got this one cut just how we want it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to trace it. Before we trace it, though, you don't want to get lazy or maybe rush. And you want to make sure you crown this board as well. Find the top. I'm going to say this is the top. So I'll pull this out a little ways. I'll set this board on top. We will line up both ends really nice, and then we'll trace it. That looks pretty good. Now that I've got my two stringers cut, before I walk them in there, I need to have something to attach to the wall underneath the walk door so that I can attach the stringers to that, okay? So in this case, I marked the board. Now what's interesting, I'm not used to this, but Menards, when they sell you an 8-foot board, they sell you an 8-foot board. So that was kind of weird to me. They were all kind of like short, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I don't know why, but those 2x4s, I made one cut and I cut those all down. They're exactly 4 foot. I usually would make those a little bit wider so I could just slide my plywood in without having to cut it. But when I look at the plywood, it's actually like 3 foot, 11 3/4. So it's not even 4 foot wide. So I think it's maybe just going to lay right between these, just lay right on top of that ramp like we want. So when we put this board up on the wall, it's going to be up close to where I'm going to have to bevel it because I can't angle the board because it'll be hitting the side of the house. So this one's got to be completely vertical, which means I got to bevel the top of this board. So in order to bevel that, I need the old calculator again, which actually I won't need the calculator because we did the calculations, but it looks like the angle is 8.36 degrees. So I should be able to just angle my saw and rip this board down 8.6, or let's call it 8.5. So that bevel is not going to be much at all. Here's your arrow. That's pretty close, somewhere around 9, somewhere in there. So I'm going to bevel this cut, and I'll try to cut. I guess it doesn't necessarily matter. I need to cut a straight line. So with my speed square, all I did was I just grabbed one of these notches and I said, let's go with this one here. So I grabbed this notch. I'm just trying to draw a straight line on my board. I'm going to cut this bevel on it and then we'll nip it off. And I know that I'm going to have to do this on a 2x4 as well. So we'll go ahead and do that while we're standing here. We'll get all the bevels made and then we can straighten our saw blade out. So we'll mark 4 foot. I'll square this across. And I'm going to do kind of like a double board up there underneath that doorway. Again, we need to make a mark here. So I'll go ahead and mark it like right here, allowing for that bevel. A straight line. We'll cut this off too. All right, now we can straighten this out, go back to a straight 90, cut these off. One. And then 2. So the idea, if you can look over my shoulder, would be to place these boards basically like this so that they're with the slope of the ramp up against the house. We'll take these in, then we'll go get our 2 stringers and we'll put everything together inside. So these will basically go right here. Now, what you'll find is that here I could probably get my screw gun over here and run some screws into it. I'm going to have a problem. I'll put that there and I'll raise it up. But I'm going to have a problem on this side because I can't get my screw gun in. That means we're going to have to actually set this on the ground. We're going to have to build it on the ground and then we'll stand it up into place. So this is the top side. So a couple things we got to do. We've got to allow for 2 inches of bumper, which is what we did our math on. Plus we've got to allow for 3/4 inch of plywood. So that'll be top of our framing. We'll have plywood on top of that. And then the bumper will go up on the outsides. So that means 2 3/4 there. I will mark 2 3/4 over here. And then I'll chalk a line across this board, and I'll have to do that for both stringers. All right, now it's time for the assembly process. So I will set this down over here. And I'll set this one over here. Ooh. Now this is what I'm trying to accomplish. I'll just stack these just so it's a little easier to hold this board for now. But I need to line these up. And if you come on this side, you can see how once I've got it lined up, once I'm flush with the edge here, I have a nice angle that follows the basically the plane of the wood or the floor, right? So that's what we're after right there. So let me get some screws in this, get a couple screws started because we won't be able to do it once we put it up there. And now this is just a matter of, whoops, a little bit of finesse. This is easier with a partner. There it is. Very nice. Yep, I can live with that. Okay, got that one set up. We will come over here, try to get this guy set up now. This is a little bit out of square, so let me straighten that. There we go. Get a couple more fasteners in it, just so we have some strength here to hold. All right, we've got that one. Now this one, it just needs to be a little bit shorter. It won't be flush at the bottom, but we can tie these two together, so make it easier to work with. All right, we are good to go. Now, I may have to notch this one for the stair, so I can certainly do that. I would want to pull down. Probably should have done that before, but that won't be that hard. How high of a rise did we go? We are, that's 10 inches there. So you can do all sorts of math to actually cut for this stair right here. Since I'm putting this together this way and I'm trying to explain it, I think now that it's put together, you can see that we're going to have to cut for one of these stairs. So it's this simple. Take your tape measure and just measure this, and I've got 9.5 inches down, okay? So I'm going to go, that was from my mark from the top of this, so I'm just going to measure 9.5 inches down, which is going to put me right there, okay? Then you would just take your speed square, go with the angle you've already cut, and you would take your speed square and just flush it right up, just like this, and then you cut over. Now, you don't have to cut forever because your treads are usually 11 inches, so we just want to go enough to get past that, and that is, yeah, 11 inches will get us past. So we'll just mark 11 inches, and then we'll square it down. So that's as far as we need to go. We'll square this over. Now, if I had my longer speed square, that would have been better, but this too shall do it. And then really you'd want to square down from your horizontal line you just had, okay? So that would be your next square mark. You're going to go with this line that you just drew. Now we're going to go straight down, okay? Notch this out, and then that thing's ready to sit on top of the stairs. All right, we're all set. Now, I did a little pre-work here, and I measured down 3/4 of an inch from the top of this threshold. So I have a mark here, and I have a mark over here. So I know what those need to be, or I know that those need to be flush with the top of this. So I'm going to change bits out. I'm going to need a longer screw because now I'm going through 3 inches of lumber. So I'll get these started, and then we should be able to run them up. I'm starting them just so I can see the end of it coming out the backside. Then we'll put one more over here. Let's start it right here. This helps with a buddy, but I'm going to try to do this on my own. But we'll go ahead and set this in place. So this will slide over and then go up here, just like that. Move this bucket out of the way. Oh, I'm on my screw gun there. Pinched right up in there. Oh, there we go. And now you can come around here and you can see how that worked with our stair. We were able to just measure and cut. We left a little room. Allows it to seat real nice in there. Find my mark to allow for the plywood flooring. Feel that biting real good. All right, this one here, we got to come up just a pinch. We want to make sure that that is a seamless entry the best that we can. Use my hammer. Oh yeah, there we go. I'll just put that right. Anytime you hit a nail, it'll do that to you. All right, good deal. Nice and firm. Right now I'm just marking where these boards go. I think what I might do, I'll go ahead and mark the edges, which means I'll take 3/4 of an inch off each one. So that'll be an edge. That's an edge. This one here is 8 foot, so it's got to be perfect. So we'll mark both edges on that one. And then we'll go 10 foot. Yeah, and then that last one, it'll just lay flat. I don't know if I have 3.5 inches. Yes, I do. All right. I'm going to cheat a little bit and use an air nailer just to set these, because trying to hold a board and a screw gun and a screw is kind of hard all at one time. Drive that in place. See how much easier that is. I think with 2 people, air gun's not necessary, but that's what I'm working with. Okay, I've got this all framed up. I just went ahead and put framing every 2 feet because that's pretty standard, especially with 3/4 inch plywood. When I got to the 8 foot mark, I actually went ahead because I could. I went ahead and just double boarded this. So I'll have a good break and you won't have to worry about the plywood folding under or anything like that. I think we're about ready to put this thing on. I did go through and put some GRKs in the ends of each one of these so that I felt comfortable walking on all these. And they feel really good to me now. So I think we're good. I think I want to put this thing in place and then we'll worry about cutting the plywood, laying it down. But man, it's coming together really, really well. The only thing is I know that the plywood is going to end. The plywood's going to end, like wherever the end of this chalk line is. So if you take a look, this is actually the bottom of the plywood. So I want to mark the top of the plywood and I want to draw a straight line here. And then I'm going to take my saw, I'm going to cut this off. And that way when they approach from this angle, they don't have a tripping hazard right there, okay? Okay, I've got a line chalked. First line was for our boards at the bottom of the board of the OSB flooring. This is the top. So that tells me that the top of the flooring is going to stop right about here. Okay. Now, if I cut a straight up cut, it's going to be a little like, what's that all about, right? I don't know. To me, it just seems a little, I don't know, janky. I don't know if that's the right word. So what I can do, this is a natural 45 on this speed square, is I could just come in here and I could feather this cut back and I'll just cut it at a 45-degree angle. So when they come in, it's a smoother one. And honestly, if you really wanted it, you could feather this thing. Maybe we could send it all the way out here just so it feels more comfortable, right? As you're entering on the side here. That side, I'm going to leave these bumpers up the entire way. So once we get this up, we'll screw it to the wall. I want to tag it to the floor, tap count it to the floor. But let me make this cut real fast. So what I just felt, I had my battery caught on this board and I was wondering what's happening. And it's totally put me in a bind now. So let me start over again here. Snuck up on me, but yeah, that'll look real nice once it gets on the floor here. Pull this thing in place. All right, we are locked in right at our 2-inch mark up there that we brought in. And now I want to bring this one in right here. And I'm kind of measuring off this threshold too, just making sure. So this definitely has got to come up, and we knew that. So I'll take my hammer. Oops, let me see if I can. Oh, there we go. All right. And now we're just going to make sure that we match both sides here. That guy's locked in, and we'll put the rest of these back. A simple way to see if this is going to be, if it's squared up, is we will just measure from here. It looks like I've got 4 7/8 off the wall, and that's fixed and not going anywhere. So we'll come over here and we'll do the same We just got to make sure we're measuring off the drywall and we don't confuse ourselves with the measuring off the concrete now that you're lower. And we are, man, we're right there. Okay. So now I can mark this floor and just say that's our line. So if I kick it or bump it, we're fine. I'd like to take a Tapcon and just put 2 in here, 2 small holes. We'll do 3/16 holes, so they'll be small, just to keep it from sliding. But see how this gives him room to actually get on this ramp and then go up? I like it. So we'll tack these in right now. And just vibrating that board. There we go. I'll keep my foot there because I can feel the movement just in the drill. Maybe I only need 1, but I'll go ahead and go with 2. There you have it. That thing's solid. Now that we've got the frame in place, we've got it squared and we've got it locked in really nice. Now we need to put some plywood on top of this. So what we're going to do is the plywood's obviously stopped right here, okay? So I know that I'm going to be cutting this top corner out. So I'm going to take, I'll say 3 foot 3/8 of an inch, and then it needs to come back about 1.5 inches, I would say, to be safe. So 3 foot, did I say 3 foot 3/8? Yeah. So let's go measure this. We'll notch that plywood and bring our first sheet in. Okay, so one thing you got to be sure of, there's a rough side to this OSB and there's a smooth side, and this is the rough side. We want rough side up, and so you kind of got to envision how's this going to lay down. So I'm considering this my top. So if I go 3 foot 3/8 of an inch, it would be right there. And then I said about 1.5 inches, and I marked this. I actually marked this 1 5/8 inches earlier, but I think I want to tighten it up now that the ramp's in place. So I'll go ahead and mark that. There'll be less of a gap. And then when we slide this piece of plywood in place, it'll be notched right around that door, real pretty. All right. Now this sheet of plywood is held just by a couple GRKs in the cracks of my trailer, which is fine. I'll just slide this over. I think what I'll try to do is get this thing to lay a little more flat for me. So I won't be too particular, but I'll get this thing cut. Take my jigsaw, we'll just clean up this edge real fast. Very nice. This is an exposed cut edge, so I want it to look as nice as possible since you're going to see it every time you step outside the door. Okay, now I got to think. I got to walk in here. I want it to lay down, so I'm going to have to walk in on the left, lay it down towards the right, which means I need the side towards me down. I'm going to slide this up close. We'll let it lay down. And then we'll slide it up into place here. See that? That ends with the end of our board, kind of like we wanted. And I thought if anything's a little bit out of square, like the wall, that's fine, because see how that allows for that adjustment. And then up here, it looks pretty darn good. We need to rip our sheet of plywood down 50 inches. And screw that down. I think that's the end. That finishes up the project. I actually ran this ice and water shield down, and then I actually rolled it over. One cool thing that I will share with the viewers, you can actually take these staple guns and you can set them down and then hit them and they'll drive a staple. And that's how I kind of hemmed this bottom edge. But I think this went pretty good. I wish it had more slope to it, but they still need room to be able to move the wheelchair up and down. So thanks for watching. Remember, hit the like, subscribe, and hit those notifications so that you can get more of our content. And we'll see you next time.